Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Raising the Flipping Bar. I am your host, Derek Marlin, and we're going to do a solo episode. I've brought my laptop in here because we're actually going to do a deal analysis. And what this is this is actually our best flip ever and our worst flip ever. I think to me, it's really important to talk about your losses in addition to your wins. Right now, we've got a pretty good track record where we've done over, I think we're approaching deal number 90 between our deals and our clients' deals that we consult and help people on or do as a partnership flip. And we've only lost money on 3 of them. I'm going to tell you about the one that really, really sucked. So I think that's something that we really want to come across is that there will always be wins, which you should celebrate, but there's definitely going to be losses. So let's jump into the deal analysis. That was also some feedback that we got from our first season, was that people really wanted to see deals analyzed, and really we love education. I obviously love the content side of things, but I'm really a tacticianer, and a practitioner of really doing deals and doing business. And then we'll tell people the good and the bad of exactly what we've got, going on. So let's jump into these deals. I'm going to set a little bit of context. They're actually both in Metro Denver. So the nice thing is it's not, some outlier of a town that's 30 miles north of Metro Denver and a town that's 30 miles south of Metro Denver. These things are fairly close to one another. They're definitely in different neighborhoods, but we'll talk about those here in just a second. So with that said, I do want to start with at least the best deal so that I kind of feel okay about myself and I don't want to go cry in a corner or walk into oncoming traffic here outside of the Broadway Collective. So we're going to talk about a deal. And I'm going to share my screen. So you guys listening to us, you'll have to jump onto the show notes. You'll be able to see actually, definitely some really nitty gritty numbers and kind of how we analyze deals. So I'm going to jump to the deal analysis spreadsheet. To set some context, the address for this property is 2501 North Ray Street in Denver. And I'll also kind of share what the layout was, what the style of the home was. This property we bought back in January of 2021, and we bought the property for $460,000. It was an off-market deal that we actually work with more of kind of an independent wholesaler. And people always ask me and they say like, well, I should get on every wholesale list. You should know about deals, but in my opinion, this is the type of relationship that we wanted to create. A guy, his name is Maurice. He's a fantastic investor. He does a lot of seller financing and kind of more creative deals, but once in a while he comes across people that just want to outright sell. And so for us, we want to refer business back and forth. And he called us about this deal, had been working with the seller for a long time. And it was a family property where the sister was the current resident, but her brother had unfortunately passed away a couple years back. And, but she had been living in the property. So she was the beneficiary and she was the heir. And so she was going to be the one to sell the property and reap the proceeds and reap the benefits. So we work with her and we're able to rent back to her. So again, we really want to be kind of creative problem solvers. We want to show people that we care, try to fix as many problems as we can. Obviously we're business. We got to make money and keep the doors open. But she needed some time for us to close on the property, for her to live there. She was actually moving to Florida. And so she needed a little extra time to move, to get her ducks in a row, to help buy a property down in Florida. And so we worked with her on that. It was roughly a 4.5-month construction timeline on the project. And I'm going to jump into, again, kind of looking at the specific deal. So the rehab budget was just over $148,000. And all in, this was right around 180 days. And that was from the time we bought it, the rent back period, all of the construction timeline, listing the property for sale. And then in this instance, it took right around 30 days to close. This is a little bit longer of a project than we normally do. Normally we're kind of in and out in roughly 3, maybe 4 months max. But the big reason why is it was a complete and total gut down to the studs. It was also done in the city and county of Denver. So the permitting process was definitely, it's not as long as it is now, sadly, in 2023, but in 2021, it was still fairly long. And the city just, there were certain things that they kind of came back at us and hit us up on multiple times, which we'll talk about here in a second. But that was kind of the reason why. The good news is that it was worth the wait. So let's dive a little bit into the actual numbers. And so what that is we bought this property for $470,000. and we listed the property for sale for $750,000. We are huge proponents of pricing properties, if you can, slightly below where you feel like you should be able to sell it, especially in a hot seller's market. And so we listed it for sale for $750,000. We felt like we could have potentially listed it for $775,000 or even maybe $800,000, but we said, no, let's stay true to our numbers. Let's hopefully create a bidding war, which is what we actually ended up doing. And this property sold for $70,000 over asking. So it sold for $820,000. It is in the City Park neighborhood, which is, as it sounds, right next to City Park in the core and kind of heart of central Denver. It is a beautiful Victorian home. It was 3 bedrooms and it's 2 bathrooms, and it was just under 1,900 square feet. So this one also was kind of a really cool one where we really need to keep the charm of the property on the interior. So you want it to look nice and modern and updated, especially as it relates to the kitchens and the bathrooms. But what we did is we exposed some brick in the family room and had a really cool fireplace. We exposed a little bit of brick in the upstairs and just made it kind of a really cool, unique property and kept it true to that neighborhood and then that stylistic aspect of the specific home. Looking at our deal analyzer, these are all 100% net profit numbers. I think the thing, I always call it HGTV numbers. It's like bought for $470, sold for $820, $400,000 of profit. No, there's tons of costs that obviously go with this property. So we held it for 180 days. It kind of makes me sad to look at how low our interest rates were in 2021, but we were paying 4% interest. Quick little reminder on how we finance our in-house company deals is that we've got a line of credit that we draw against, and that's secured by stocks and bonds. And so we're paying 4% on our money, but obviously we're making a significantly higher return. So the 3 metrics that we always look at, and I'm going to give them to you in order of importance for elevation. I know other people look at them a little bit differently, but we made our number 1 metric is actually dollars per day. If you remember back from season 1, that is the net profit divided by how many days did you hold the property. So we made just over $805 per day in net profit. The number that I think everybody else kind of really resonates with is just overall, how much money did you make? So again, a net profit when it takes into account purchase price, sales price, all your holding costs, all of your rehab expenses, paying the title company, paying for insurance, paying for property taxes, everything else. We made $145,009. So for us on an independent deal, this was definitely a home run. The other thing that I really kind of lean back on is what is it like in comparison to investing in the stock market? Because that's theoretically a much more liquid investment. Real estate can be riskier, so you need to generate the right returns. And so we made just over almost a 21.5% ROI on this particular deal. The other thing that people do is they'll annualize it, meaning, well, this is how much I would have made if I could have invested it for the whole year. Yes, ideally we can do another one of these and you would make, 42% return on your money. No one can guarantee that you're going to make another, or take down another deal like that and you're going to make just as much money. So we look at it on a very specific snapshot of how much did I make on this deal. So again, $805 a day net profit, $145,000 total in net profit. ROI just over 21 or almost 21.5%. So let's talk a little bit about a couple other deal points to help, again, to kind of put this in context. The renovation budget was $148,000. The reason we were able to do that is, one, this is a couple years ago, so prices sadly have definitely gone up. We were probably closer to $50 per square foot. We also really had a decision to weigh, which was this particular property did not have a garage. I really thought about adding a garage, but we always look for at least doubling our ROI when we're going to spend on rehab. So for example, if I was going to spend $30,000 for a detached 2-car garage that backs to the alley, would have been really great, but I needed to make sure that we could price our house and sell it at least $60,000 higher. So again, we normally push the envelope on comps, which are comparable sales, in that we're usually selling roughly the most expensive house in that area. Best case scenario is that hopefully you've got other fixed up properties. They've sold for around $750, and that's why we priced it there. But if we have to list that thing at 800 or 850, it starts to shrink the buyer pool. It's also a little bit harder to get a loan. And then when you're in those price points, buyers are more discerning and are going to kind of pick your product apart a little bit. So what we did is we said, okay, this is a great value, and it's still bid up, 70 grand. I haven't ever actually executed on this, but we also offer for clients, because we do get good pricing on our rehab, is we'll build the garage, but we'll just build it after closing. So we'll work with our contractors and we'll come up with a really fair price. They get the benefit and our buyers get kind of two bits of benefit. One, they actually get somebody that they can kind of trust because we've already done the work on their home. We've got relationships with those contractors so we can get them to work for, or they work with us, I should say, for more reasonable pricing, and they'll actually get a call back. In today's current market environment in Denver, stuff is still, pretty busy for contractors. And so sometimes you might, if you're jumping online and trying to find somebody to build a garage, you might not even get a call back. So wanted to set the context. That was the biggest profit we've ever made. I do want to talk about a few challenges for this specific property. And the first one is the city and county of Denver and the permitting process. It was, it was a bear. We definitely wanted to do everything by the book. The house was kind of in shambles. And so we wanted to bring it back to life. But the interesting thing is we had to haggle over, we did have finished square footage in the basement. And so they were giving us a hard time on the landing area. When you walk down to the basement and hit that last stair, you have to have over a 6'4" clearance when you go down the stairs. And they were originally going to have us completely change up and reframe the staircase, which would have been not only a deal breaker from a budget perspective, but logistically, there's only so, many square feet in a smaller home like this. Like, you can't just put the stairs anywhere. We quickly pointed to all these other comparable sales of properties in the area that were renovated and had not done that. What we ended up having to do is actually dig out the basement floor a little bit to drop that last step so that it made that 6'4" clearance, and then cut a little notch in the stairway so that you've got extra head height when you're walking downstairs. So again, even when you think things are straightforward, they definitely weren't. And that definitely causes some time and some pain and some heartache, and really, staying on top of the city and county of Denver in the permitting process and making sure things were done right. The good news is when you go and sell a product, people always ask us, do you pull permits all the time? We do when they're warranted and justified, meaning if you're supposed to pull a permit, we do. And it really helps us sell those properties more effectively on the back end. So it helps you with inspection resolutions. It helps you with those negotiations. And that is definitely a key to success, in my opinion, when you're selling completely fixed up properties that are more expensive. We always lean towards pulling permits. So, okay, let's jump into the worst deal that we've ever done. And the craziest thing about this deal is it pains me to look back at these notes. I'm going to put some context so you can look it up. You guys can check it out. We'll put it in the show notes, and we'll put a link to, either Redfin or Zillow or something so you guys can see the pictures, because they still, show you that things turned out and they look pretty cool. But 161 South Bryant, Bryant Street in Denver. Two definitely, different neighborhoods. So let's talk about the context of the timing on this property. Like I said, the first one was 2021. That was the absolute height of the market. That was far enough away from COVID. There was no inventory in the market. Everybody was wanting to still move and, work from home, and they wanted more space. And so again, we went into that deal thinking, okay, it's a double. We had projected it at, about a $75,000 to $80,000 profit, which is kind of a double rounding into a triple in our baseball analogy world. And it became a home run because it went so far over asking. This one, we quickly saw, unfortunately, the market turning a different direction. So we purchased this property in June of 2022. We definitely started to see a little bit of the writing on the wall. And one of the reasons why we did that, and this is just kind of a fortunate piece of experience that we've got, we also work with hedge funds. And so at that point, our large hedge fund client, who at that point had bought almost 260 properties with us, we were outsourcing single family rentals for this large fund. They were starting to delay some of their closings. Interest rates were going up very, very rapidly in a very short amount of time. And so I just got the sense, man, there's something weird going on. And so what we were going to do with this property, is we were going to add onto the back and add a true, suite onto the back, an ensuite, meaning we were going to add an extra bedroom and an extra bathroom, and we were going to make it into a 3-bed, 2-bath. On this one, we were going to pull the trigger because it was a really big lot, and we were going to build a 2-car garage. Where I got nervous is that our hedge fund dumped 17 properties in one day, meaning we were supposed to help them acquire and close on and purchase 17 different single-family rentals. And because they were past their inspection period, they walked away from a significant amount of earnest money, and they had no problem doing it, which was really unfortunate, obviously, for the buyers. Now, things happen. Nobody can guarantee that closings happen, and we were able to smooth that over with the clients. Of course, they got several $1,000s each in forfeited earnest money. But I thought, man, when people that are far smarter than me, that have a lot more real estate under management, are bailing, something is going on. So I said, okay, let's change course and let's get this thing done as fast as humanly possible. And the reason being because we didn't have to add that addition, because we did not have to, or we decided not to do a 2-car garage. We could just take all the, old crappy aspects of the house out, put them back in and make them brand new. We didn't have to pull permits because we were just taking old kitchen out, new kitchen in, old bathroom out, new bathroom in. So there was really no structural changes to this house. And I said, let's just get it done as fast as possible. More importantly, let's pivot to lower price points. So let's keep this thing as inexpensive as possible, because there should be a wider buying pool for individuals in a far lesser price point. So we bought it in June of 2022 for $315,000. We fixed it up, and we actually ended up, let me look at my notes. Let's just jump to the deal analysis here. We ended up still spending $134,000 because once we opened this thing up, we realized how bad a shape it was in. We got under the crawl space and we did all of our due diligence, and we still, even with our contingency budget, blew through that because the house needed so much work. It was really, truly kind of falling apart. And we're not comfortable putting our name on something on the back end. So even if it means me losing money, we're going to do it because I want that family who buys that property to have a great property and live in it and be really happy for a long, long time. But we spent $134,000 on rehab, and this property from close to close without permits, half of the size of the other one. So this is only 845 square feet. We lost, these are again painful, bear with me. Our normal metric is dollars per day in profit. I never have it in loss. We lost $241 every day that I woke up, and we still put lots of work and time and sweat and equity into it. We ended up with a loss, which is why this is screaming red, we lost $44,918 on a 2-bed, 2-bath, 845 square foot home in Metro Denver that we sold fixed up for $450,000. That is a negative 9.08% ROI. So again, I want to kind of let these numbers just sit. As painful as it is for me to walk you guys through these numbers, it's really important because everybody talks about the wins. Again, everything's the HGTV. Everybody makes so much money in every deal. Sometimes you get your ass handed to you on these deals. And this was a really rough one for us. So kind of some additional context as I kind of glance back down at my notes. Again, the market was slowing. We did not want to have a bigger house. We did not want to have to pull permits. We did not want to spend more in the rehab. So we got in and out. We ended up, our original ARV, which stands for after repair value, of what we were going to list it for was between $500 and $525. Well, by the time those 4 months had transpired, the Denver market corrected 10% in about 4 or 5 months. So I said, this is painful, but we got to still list this thing at $475. We can't just arbitrarily pick a number, which in my opinion, a lot of investors do. Just because you go higher on rehab, you can't just, list your house for more money. It's worth what someone is willing to pay for it. And it was a painful example. I learned this lesson when I was young. I was probably 10 or 11 years old, and I remember I was big into baseball cards when I was younger, and I had bought this card, and it was a Ken Griffey Jr. rookie card. It was an Upper Deck series and set, and I said, well, I was telling my dad, hey, I've got this card. It's worth this much money. My little Beckett price guide, and this is dating me, says how much this thing's worth. I should be able to sell it for this. And he's like, well, what is somebody going to pay you for it? I'm like, I don't know. So I went in to sell the card, and somebody was willing to pay a lot less than what that Beckett price guide said. Houses are no different. So we ended up, again, listing it for $475. It still took another 6 weeks to go under contract, which in our current Denver market is an eternity if something is priced correctly, which again, there were comps, but there was more inventory sitting on the market. And the big thing was interest rates were going way up. And so this was more of a first-time home buyer demographic. And those people were now not qualifying for loans because their income was static, but interest rates were going up. So they couldn't, the banks wouldn't say, oh, sure, you can afford another $300 a month, another $400 per month. They weren't doing that. And so I think that really kind of contributed to us not doing well. And then it was, sat for 6 weeks. We did go under contract. Finally, we had to cut we went under contract at $460. And then we actually were 5 days out from closing. And I'm jumping back to the deal analysis, savvy negotiating on the behalf of the buyer's real estate agent. There is typically the last deadline when someone can terminate on a deal and not put their earnest money at risk is called the loan termination deadline. And what that is they've, hopefully you vetted them properly, that they've gotten the loan, they've been approved, they've done all their underwriting, they've submitted their income, they have verified they've got a job, their assets, nothing has changed. But normally 3 to 5 days before the end of the transaction, if something does go haywire and crazy that could be outside of their control, they can terminate on the deal and they get their money back. As an investor, this sucks. And this is exactly what happened was they said, their agent said, hey, we need another $10,000 off to make the numbers work or the buyer doesn't qualify for the loan. We really tried to press the agent and said, okay, show us documentation. We tried to call the lender and they wouldn't take our call. That's code for somebody that knows that we are between a rock and a hard place, as they say. And so 5 days out from closing, I had two choices. I told them to pound sand and terminate the contract and play a game of chicken and see if they would do it. Or I had the opportunity to take another $10,000 haircut, get our capital invested back and move on to the next deal. So one of the things that I always use is this term called velocity of money, which means how fast can I turn our money? So I was looking at this deal. A couple things factored in is it was still in 2022. We were under contract in November and it was still set to close in December. I wanted that money back because typically you get the best deals on the acquisition side when you buy around the holidays. So I said, this absolutely sucks, but let's get the money back and then let's put that money back to work and let's get another good deal. By that time, we were seeing a lot of data that was showing that the market had corrected. It wasn't continuing to fall off of a cliff. And we just bit the bullet. And I said, okay, let's do it. So we did that. The other thing that I'm looking at my notes that's really important in my opinion is tax strategy. So we had a really, really strong first half of 2022 before this significant correction. And so, I got with my CPA, we also work with a really great fractional CFO that helps us with our financials. And I said, okay, is this the right time to do it? And they said, yeah, you've actually done well in the first half of the year. Take the loss. It'll offset some of your gains or your profit. And overall, you'll come out ahead. So that was another factor that we were really cognizant of. Another one, and this is really kind of going back to what's your personal investment strategy. And that was at the time, I didn't want to own any more individual rental properties in Denver. And this is just a personal decision for how we run our day-to-day investment strategy and the sister company of Elevation, which is called Flow Investments. What we did is I said, I don't want to own one-off rentals. And so had this been 2 or 3 years ago, I probably would have kept it. I would have taken it off the market, put a renter in there. Even if I break even or lose a little bit, theoretically appreciation would have probably bailed me out and I would have sold it for more money in a year or two. At that time, we had just gotten done selling all of our multifamily apartments that we owned in Cincinnati, Ohio. So we had 3 apartment buildings that we sold, and we're trying to get into the self-storage business from an income generation standpoint. And so I said, you know what, this is not my model, my strategy. Let's sell it. Let's take the loss at the right time. Let's get that capital back to work. And for us, let's try to buy self-storage facilities as a way to help generate income as our sister company compared to Elevation. So those were some things that were kind of going through our head to make sure that we're doing the right thing. So again, I really wanted to hit home. Okay, everybody talks about your best deals. That's awesome. And Ray Street was amazing. It was a beautiful property, great design. When you look at this property on Bryant Street, it's a really nice house. It is in, again, Metro Denver, in the Marlin neighborhood. It's a cool little kind of up and coming neighborhood. And we just got caught at the wrong time. So to me, a couple takeaways as we wrap up this episode on deal analysis, which is our best and our worst of all times to date, is have reserves on hand. Have reserves on hand personally, and have reserves on hand as far as your business is concerned. So ideally, we want to have, and again, it's all about your risk reward and kind of your threshold for pain of how comfortable you need to be to sleep at night. But typically we advise having 9 months worth of personal reserves on hand. If you don't have that, that's fine. Just start earlier and just set aside a savings goal. So if you can only have 1, 2, 3 months of reserves set aside in a savings account, that's okay. Just find a way to hopefully get to 9 months. And if you are, a little worried about risk, maybe bump that up to a year. And then from a business perspective, we like to have 6 months of operating expenses on hand. So if I'm spending $10,000 a month to run our business, to hit payroll, to hit marketing, to, pay for websites, to pay for our interest, we got to have $60,000 set aside. Same thing. If you need to start, a little lower down the food chain, go ahead and do that. Set money aside every month and you'll be good to go. Looking at, the other kind of big takeaway, the market can change fast. And you can't make a market for good or for bad. And so what we ended up doing is we were buying, actually in a pretty similar area. We bought 3 properties all in the, starting from June of 2022. And we bought them about 2 to 3 weeks apart. And so that Bryant Street was the first one that we bought. And that was the huge loss. We did another one, about like 3 or 4 blocks away on Wyoming Street. And that one, we just took a minor loss. That was loss number 2. We lost about $3,000 on that property, but we got in and out quickly. We priced it efficiently. It was a bummer. But again, we wanted to put that capital to work. The third property that we bought was on West 7th Avenue. And that one, was only 6 weeks away from the first acquisition, but we quickly adjusted our buy box, meaning what are we willing to pay for a property? How do we analyze the deal? And then what do we sell it for? And so we just lowered all of our offer prices to make sure we were conservative and we could list that property for less. And so what we did on a very similar property that was a 3-bed, 2-bath, that one did have a 2-car garage, but within a 6-week time span, we went back to kind of our bread and butter and we were able to make a $72,000 net profit on flipping our house on West 7th. So 2 to 3 weeks apart, super similar homes within a half-mile radius of one another. You got to just be smart about how much you're paying for these properties and what are you selling these things for. So to me, that was another really big takeaway. So I really would love for you guys to, again, get with us. We're going to have this episode and we're going to have deal analysis at least a couple times per season because I want to really give people, what we're doing and have our finger on the pulse of the market. And so we're going to share good deals. We're going to share bad deals. We're going to share partnership flips. We're going to have all these case studies because I think it's really important. Coming up, we're going to have some great episodes with phenomenal rock star agents, investors, hybrid folks that do both agency and invest. And then I've got 2 episodes coming up with some folks that are actually out of state from an investment standpoint that we've done some business with. So I'm really excited. I would end this episode with telling you guys to engage with us. We love the like, the subscribe, the follow on all of our social platforms, on our YouTube channels. But to me, I want to hear what you guys think. I want to hear, we can all commiserate together about our crappiest deals, whatever it takes, but we're just trying to build this community. So please engage and interact with us. Thanks for joining us and we will catch you guys on the flip side.